Today, we're going to talk about how fiction writing can help business writing and vice versa. Today, we're going to talk about how fiction writing can help business writing and vice versa. Before we do, please remember to subscribe to our channel and share with your writer friends who may benefit from our videos. Now, fiction and business writing. Writing fiction and writing copy for business purposes, while separated by marked differences in intent and style, still encompass many of the same elements necessary to keep a reader's attention. The goal of the fiction writer is to capture the reader's interest and imagination so that the reader continues reading. The goal of the business writer is to capture their audience's attention, with the hope that they engage enough to form some sort of relationship with the company or individual putting out the copy. There are many other distinctions, and we'll get to some of them in this video. For now, let's focus on the similarities between fiction and business writing and how fiction can help improve the writing you do for your business. First, we'll take a look at business writing. I lean towards B2B and B2C communication rather than internal communications, though we do touch on internal communications as well. So, what are the key elements of business writing? Business writing, in general, requires a deep understanding of a product or service. You're most likely trying to sell something without coming off as salesy, so that includes writing a certain way. Business writing must be clear and concise, meaning make use of shorter sentences, and it must be factual. It sticks to its precise subject matter. We don't want to confuse our audience. It is clear on who the target market or audience is and addresses them and the problems they're trying to solve specifically, and at the level of formality or informality they're accustomed to and expect. Business writing should not be ambiguous. Business writing should be very specific. It must be informative and educate the reader or potential customer, partner, or vendor, etc. It should improve a company's credibility, and it must be free of grammatical and spelling errors. Business writing uses the active voice. It leverages the old fiction writing trope, show, don't tell. It should, if possible, be story-driven, which is why we create personas, business cases, and so on, and it avoids jargon not intrinsically related to the industry. Business writing uses vocabulary that is emotive unless it's technical documentation. It's more formal than fiction, although it often allows for a little bit of leeway to come off as more human and less robotic. Business writing is actionable, it's persuasive, it may create a sense of anticipation, it understands when to use first person, second person, or third person, and it may use anecdotes. It also is likely done by a freelancer or in-house copywriter. Business writing should be so compelling that a reader will want to share it with their colleagues. Now, business writing includes copywriting for newsletters, websites, emails, memos, proposals, RFPs and RFIs, which are requests for proposals and requests for information, and their responses. Business cases and selling ideas, reports, internal or external ones, marketing collateral, handbooks and policy documentation, technical documentation, meaning instruction manuals, tutorials, etc., are all included, as is social media, posts, press releases, meeting agendas and minutes, responses to praise as well as complaints, and so on. Business writing is likely meant to create a relationship between vendors, companies, and clients, and if it's online, the copy should be SEO or search engine optimization friendly. Business writing can also include cover letters, resumes, and thank you notes, meaning candidates selling themselves to the companies where they want to find employment. According to an article in the Harvard Business Review titled The Science of Strong Business Writing by Bill Burchard from the July-August issue, great writing releases opioids that turn on reward hotspots. As a fiction writer, I know that that's what I'm doing, but it's not top of mind, or at least I don't mentally frame what I'm doing, that is, writing, in that particular way. These things are all at the subconscious level for me, and when I do think of them, I don't use those terms. So let's talk about fiction writing. In fiction, there are innumerable elements of craft that should be considered when writing fiction, whether flash fiction, which is typically a few words, short stories, fables, prose, poems, novels, or just long forms of prose that may or may not have some sort of form to them. Depending on the type of fiction you're writing, dictates which elements are required and which are not. While fiction is more fluid and ambiguous than business writing in terms of what the rules and elements and tropes are, I'm going to provide just a list of the main ones you'll bump into when writing fiction. This list is in no special order. The first I'll mention is character. Is the character round or flat, static or dynamic, major or minor? And how do we build those characters through characterization? After that, we have backstory, plots and subplots, exposition, the inciting incident, rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the resolution and denouement. There are many other elements of the craft of fiction, and I won't get to all of them here, as you can check them out in our other videos. But some of them are setting in place, point of view or a POV, meaning first person, second person, third person, and so on. Description, dialogue, conflict and tension, scene, syntax, theme, mood, tone, pacing, symbolism, aphorism, style, word choice, structure, genre, meaning under murder mystery, science fiction, literary fiction, horror, dystopian fiction, and so on. And then there's showing instead of telling and writing what you know. These are just a few of the elements of craft you'll need to address when writing your novel, novella, collection of short stories, or whatever it is that you're writing. Now I'm going to go through what fiction writing should be. Pay attention to see if what you remember from our discussion of what business writing is matches up. You should notice a lot of similarities between the two. So, fiction writing should be clear and concise, though obviously it doesn't always have to be factual. Fiction sticks to its subject matter. It must be about someone wanting something and going after it desperately, then coming to a win or loss by the end. It should be clear on who the writing is geared towards, meaning who the audience is, so that the publisher knows how to classify the book, meaning genre, which dictates where the book will sit on bookshelves. Fiction should be specific, primarily in word choice and description. It should be informative. This varies based on genre, setting, plot, etc. Fiction should be free of grammatical errors and spelling errors unless the author is showing character in some way. It should use the active voice, and it should stick to the show, don't tell trope. It should be story-driven, plot-driven, or character-driven. Story-driven fiction is normally not very satisfying to the reader, and it should avoid jargon not intrinsic to the setting or story. Fiction, that is. It should use vocabulary that is emotive. This is a tricky one because it can interfere with the show-don't-tell part of writing fiction. Fiction should be persuasive. What this means in fiction is that the writing should draw the reader in so much that she forgets she's reading a book. She should be immersed in the world that the writer has created for her to such an extent that she's persuaded to continue reading. Fiction should create a sense of anticipation. Good writing keeps readers on the edge. The promise of a resolution to a problem or hurdle our hero faces keeps the reader interested. Fiction, or the author, should understand when to use first person, second person, or third person, depending on which POV tells the story in the best, most compelling fashion. Fiction may use anecdotes, but also similes, metaphors, analogies, personification, hyperbole, alliteration, and so on. And it should be so compelling that the reader will want to share the book with others. Fiction writers must take all these elements into consideration when writing their first drafts, but also when revising and rewriting. Much of what we've spoken about comes naturally to the experienced writer. Experienced writers, in particular writers published by indie publishers and traditional publishers, address all these issues in their final manuscripts. Self-published authors have a reputation for being less diligent when it comes to ensuring the quality of the final work, but not always. I don't wish to denigrate authors who self-publish, as self-publishing is growing in acceptance, and self-published authors are turning more and more to developmental and substantive editors such as myself. They also turn to line editors, copy editors, proofreaders, and so on to make sure their final manuscripts are on par with the works put out by professional publishers. Now that we've covered what business writing is and what fiction writing is, I'm sure you've noticed the similarities, because there are many. While fiction writing allows the writer to embellish, invent, and just be more creative in general, the same core principles are in play in business writing. Clarity is important in both types of writing, as is specificity, persuasion, grammar, and spelling, using the active voice over the passive voice, creating a sense of anticipation, understanding and speaking to the correct audience in the language that's appropriate to that audience, understanding the pros and cons of which tense to use and when, and just telling a story in general that resonates with the reader and gets them to do what the writer wants, whether it be to buy their software or hardware or service offerings, or simply to take them on a fictional journey that'll put them away for a few hours or days in a fictional world. Business writers can learn much from fiction writers and vice versa. Copywriters, technical writers, content writers, and every other type of writer involved in the corporate world should not be averse to picking up a piece of fiction every now and then to see what techniques are available to them above and beyond the tools they currently use when performing their jobs. Storytelling is a universal art. Storytelling in fiction and storytelling in business communications are two sides of the same coin. They can influence and improve each other if writers take the time to learn how their fellow writers influence their readers, the tips and tricks available to them, and lead more productive lives work-wise than they ever have. As fiction writer and occasional nonfiction writer, I've worked with writers in the corporate world who build a separation between the real writers and the hacks. I tend to dismiss that distinction. To me, a writer is a writer. The subject may not be the same, the intent may be slightly different, but the tools are there for everyone to leverage, and they should. I hope this video has been informative for you and that you'll look further into improving your writing by leveraging all the tools available to you. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. It means the world to us. For NovelMasterClass.com, I'm Cully Perlman. Happy writing.